in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, and welcome to the first Watching Washington broadcast of the semester. Today is Friday, February 9th, 2024. My name is Maggie Kell.
And I'm Jordan Smith. Here's a look at the top stories of the week.
President Biden is fighting back against a special counsel report on his handling of classified documents.
Biden was exonerated in the report, but it brought up new questions about his mental fitness, describing the president as a sympathetic elderly man with a poor memory who would be impossible to convict.
CNN's MG Lee has more on Biden's reaction.
How in the hell dare he raise that?
A fiery President Biden flashing anger and frustration after an explosive investigation into his handling of classified documents was finally made public.
I've seen the headlines since the report was released about my willful retention of documents. These assertions are not only misleading, they're just plain wrong.
Just hours after Special Counsel Robert Hur released the findings of his 15-month investigation, the White House hastily adding presidential remarks from the White House Tuesday night. Biden taking issue with not only the media's coverage of the report, which concluded no criminal charges would be brought.
I was pleased to see he reached a firm conclusion that no charges should be brought against me in this case,
but also bristling at the many allegations in the report of Biden struggling with memory problems. The special counsel writing that Biden would likely present himself to the jury as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning and I'm an elderly man and I know what the hell I'm doing.
How bad is your memory and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad I let you speak.
But in that same setting, Biden mixing up the president of Egypt with a different world leader as he discussed the situation in Gaza.
The president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in.
Critics of the president quickly seizing on the unflattering descriptions of Biden in the report, but the president trying to swat away broader questions about voters' concerns about his age and mental fitness.
Mr. President, for months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, "Watch me." Many American people have been watching and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
They expressed concerns about your mental acuity. They say that you are too old. Mr. President, in December, you told me that you believe there are many other Democrats who could defeat Donald Trump. So why does it have to be you now? What is your answer to that question?
Because I'm the most qualified person in this country to be president of the United States and finish the job I started.
One line of questioning in particular from Special Counsel Hur deeply angering the president.
There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died. How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, it wasn't any of their damn business. Let me tell you something. I don't need anyone to remind me when he passed away.
A 3-judge panel on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled Tuesday that former President Donald Trump is not immune from prosecution for the alleged crimes he committed while he was president. The decision rejects Trump's claims that he was acting within the scope of his duties as president and therefore cannot be tried. This is the latest in the ongoing federal election interference case brought up by Special Counsel Jack Smith, which has been postponed until the legal question of immunity is resolved. Trump is expected to appeal this decision to the Supreme Court.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited Tel Aviv, Israel on Wednesday. It was Blinken's 7th visit to Israel since the October 7th attack on Gaza. Blinken's visit was to plan on how to bring all the remaining hostages home. The United States is working with both Egypt and Qatar to help get the hostages back home. There are also potential issues at the Lebanon-Israel border, but Blinken says that they are continuing to work closely with Israel and Lebanon on diplomatic efforts to de-escalate tensions on Israel's northern border. Blinken also mentioned that they are working on helping displaced Palestinians to return back home to Palestine. While Blinken is trying to help Palestinians, he made it clear that he does not stand with Hamas.
Senator Chuck Schumer emphasizes the importance of the border bill. Schumer discusses the necessity of passing the bill, which includes provisions for addressing the fentanyl crisis and providing aid to Ukraine, Israel, and humanitarian efforts in the Middle East and Indochina, with an assurance of a fair amendment process.
That's what the bill we're doing does. It has everything that we had in the original supplemental negotiations, but without border, although we do have the fentanyl issue, and that's not a border issue, but that is very, very important. And so we just hope they can come to yes, and we will have the second vote if the first vote fails. I still hope that they would rethink the first vote. Donald Trump wants chaos. Donald Trump does not want success at the border. He wants chaos, and if he became president, I doubt he'd ever solve it, as Mitch McConnell said. And so we want them to pass the border bill, and if they vote against border, America will know who is for fixing the border and who is not. But if it fails, we still believe Ukraine, Israel, humanitarian aid to the Middle East and help in Indochina, as well as strengthening our military, is vitally important. For all those Republicans who said, who first said, we want it with border, and now say we want it without border, they got both options.
Most people know by now about the border war between Texas and the United States. Less obvious, but no less consequential, is an emerging border war inside the Supreme Court. According to the New York Times, on the actual border, there are 29 miles of barbed wire on the U.S. side of the border, set up by Texas National Guard on the orders Governor Greg Abbott. Its purpose is to stop what Abbott, a Republican, has called an uncontrolled invasion of the undocumented immigrants. It also has the additional effects of preventing federal border patrol agents from entering the border. Agents responded by cutting some power lines. Texas, in turn, sued the federal government for trespassing. Recently, the state lost in federal district court on the grounds that the United States is immune from such suits. But the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit gave Texas what it wanted: a ban on Border Patrol agents tampering with barbed wire, except for rescue operations, until the appeals court rules on the legal merits of the state's case.
Also, Texas is the first and only state in the history of the United States of America to build our own border wall. If you look at the amount of wall already constructed and the amount of wall that is going to be under construction, Texas will have built more of the Trump border wall than even Trump built in the state of Texas.
In a defeat for Republican House leadership, a vote to impeach the Homeland Security Secretary failed Tuesday night. GOP House leaders claimed Alejandro Mayorkas committed high crimes and misdemeanors for his handling of the southern border. Constitutional experts have said the evidence against him does not reach that high bar. The vote failed with 214 in favor and 216 against, including 4 Republicans. Many political observers knew the matter was largely political, with little change of succeeding. It's unlikely the democratically controlled Senate would have voted to convict Mayorkas if the impeachment passed the House. Republican Speaker Mike Johnson spoke to press Wednesday on what he calls a result of messy democracy.
We have a razor-thin margin here, and every vote counts. Sometimes when you're counting votes and people show up when they're not expected to be in the building, it changes the equation. But listen, we have a duty and a responsibility to take care of this issue. We have to hold the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security accountable. Mayorkas needs to be held accountable. The Biden administration needs to be held accountable, and we will pass those articles of impeachment. We'll do it on the next round.
Following the impeachment vote Tuesday night, Republicans also failed to pass a standalone bill to provide billions of dollars in aid to Israel.
Up next, news from Buckingham Palace about the King's health.
Plus, all the latest in wake of the Nevada primary. Stay with us. More Watching Washington next.
At Purdue University, we're not just students, we're future leaders. Join Air Force ROTC to embark on a journey of honor, excellence, and service. Learn, lead, and soar to new heights. It's not just a commitment, it's a calling. Purdue Air Force ROTC, where dreams take flight. Are you ready to rise?
I got a switch in my head. I go from living to dead. You got me seeing all red. Now I'm becoming.
The Center for C-SPAN, which is this organization, the CCSC, what we do is we facilitate like a bunch of organizations, different programs for Brian Lamb, which is the founder of C-SPAN. Anyone can be part of CCSC, whether it be through our various internships, our competitions, just to be involved, even like our student community meetings that we have every week. Anyone can go, you don't have to be communications or poli-sci. You just meet so many people, the connections you make is kind of crazy, the range that CCSC has. So yeah, it's just provided me so many opportunities to like kind of achieve the goals I have personally and forward to like whatever career paths I choose.
King Charles steps out for the first time since the news broke of his cancer diagnosis. At age 75, Britain's King Charles III has been diagnosed with cancer. This was revealed by Buckingham Palace on Monday. While the king originally sought corrective care for an enlarged prostate last month, palace sources say it is not prostate cancer. The palace also stated while undergoing treatment, King Charles will take a step back from his public-facing duties, calling on Prince William and Queen Camilla to carry out duties of the monarch. Prince William, next in line to the throne, will be returning to public duties later this week after supporting his wife's recovery from abdominal surgery. Prince Harry also spoke to his father and is planning a trip to the UK in the coming days. Buckingham Palace stated, "His Majesty has chosen to share his diagnosis to prevent speculation and in the hope it may assist public understanding for all those around the world who are affected by cancer."
The U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments on whether former President Donald Trump should appear on the 2024 Republican ballot in Colorado. The state determined Trump should be pulled from their ballots based on the 14th Amendment, and the constitutional statute declares that public officials who have engaged in an insurrection are disqualified from holding public office again. The state argued their decisions were substantiated by Trump's alleged efforts to disrupt the 2020 election and role in inciting the January 6 Capitol protest. However, all 9 U.S. Supreme Court justices seem to display some skepticism over the arguments from the attorneys, challenging Trump's eligibility. During the arguments, Chief Justice John Roberts questioned whether this would lead to other states kicking other candidates off their ballot. Colorado and Maine's decision are paused on appeal until a decision is made regarding their eligibility.
President Biden has won the Nevada Democratic primary on Tuesday, according to the Associated Press. This year's primary was very uncompetitive compared to the 2020 primary when he lost to Senator Bernie Sanders. Biden won with 89.3% of the vote, and the next candidate was Marianne Williamson with only 2.9% of the votes.
Before the vote on Tuesday, Biden met with culinary union workers at the Vdara Hotel in Las Vegas before visiting a tea shop in Chinatown. Vice President Kamala Harris also held her own rally the same night, where she focused on the administration's policy successes. Biden also recently won the South Carolina primary with 96.2% of the votes, and New Hampshire's primary after voters wrote his name in.
Voters in Nevada went to the polls this week, but there was a lot of confusion at the ballot box as Republicans dealt with dueling primary contests. The two main GOP candidates, former President Donald Trump and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, competed in different contests. Trump has secured delegates in Nevada, but he was not listed on the primary ballot. This created confusion for the voters in the Silver State. Though Trump was not in the primary, Trump did run in last night's Nevada's Republican Party-run caucus, where he did not face any real opposition.
Nikki Haley lost Nevada's non-binding Republican primary to none of these candidates, according to a CNN projection. This is an option voters have to express their dissatisfaction with all the candidates on the ballot. After her defeat, Haley said she is staying in the race until at least Super Tuesday in March.
More news on the presidential election. Nikki Haley has received an increase in threats and the former governor has asked for Secret Service protection. Haley had talked about a recent swatting attempt on her home in South Carolina while she was out for a campaign. Both of her parents were still in the home, which was very traumatic for Haley. She also received threats while campaigning. However, she states, "It is not going to stop me from doing what I need to do." A request for her protection has been submitted to the federal officials, and she is still waiting on a response.
In our studio, our in-studio guest this week is Mayor Gentry. He is the mayor of Lebanon. We will be asking him about the LEAP Economic Development Project.
The full interview will be after the break. Stay tuned. This is Watching Washington.
Are you looking for a new hobby? Or you want to have a fun evening with your friends?
Then come climb to new heights at the Co-Rec Climbing Wall.
We are energetic, we are motivating, and we are unique.
I don't think you can beat Quidditch.
We have a special guest with us in the studio today.
Mayor Matthew Gentry is the mayor of Lebanon. The Indiana city is at the center of a big economic development project, a project some oppose due to a plan to pipe in water from northern Indiana, which includes here in Tippecanoe County. Here's Watching Washington's Joanne Newbay to discuss the issue.
Thank you, that's right. I've got Mayor Matthew Gentry with me today to discuss the topic of the LEAP project. The LEAP project is an economic development project that plans to bring a lot of investment to Boone County, Indiana, just outside of Indianapolis. Thanks for being here, Mayor. My first question, in your own words, tell us about the LEAP project.
You know, really the LEAP project is the state of Indiana's effort to participate and engage with economies of the future, right? How do we, as a state, how do we attract those jobs that for making the products of the things that we're all going to need, 20, 50 years from now, right? And so, really the LEAP effort is an idea of how do we compete on an international level. It's kind of modeled off after similar types of developments in other parts of America, such as the Research Triangle Park that you probably heard of, North Carolina. Also places in Texas, and we see what's happening in Columbus, Ohio as well. So really it's Indiana's attempt to try to compete against that and bring those jobs here to Indiana.
Oh, that's so cool. How will Lebanon benefit from the LEAP project, and what businesses will it attract?
Yeah, so we're really focused on, again, technologies of the future, right? So semiconductors certainly is part of that. Pharmaceutical, obviously with Eli Lilly locating there in the LEAP district. A lot of life sciences, agribusiness, but also looking at data centers, electric batteries. Again, products and things that people will be using for generations to come, right? Especially as our economy is transitioning to the future. So certainly Lebanon will benefit by having a lot of that investment occurring here. A lot of probably population increases as people want to live near where they work. But also it's really not just about Lebanon either, right? It really is about the larger ecosystem here in West Central Indiana of how do we compete for these jobs nationally. And that's, I would say, something that it's not just about Lebanon. It really is about the whole region and state.
Cool, thank you so much.
Yep.
All right. And when did you first learn of the plans for the LEAP project?
So I got a call from at that time, the Secretary of Commerce, Brad Chambers, essentially wanted to set up a meeting with me to talk about some things that the state was working on. I ended up having a meeting with the governor and Secretary Chambers in March of, 2022 now, so almost coming up on 2 years ago, to kind of go through and explain what the state's vision was for the LEAP district. Now, I would say the fall before, so October of 2021, We had started hearing rumors of someone was trying to buy all this land up west of Lebanon. We heard everything from rumors from a FedEx airport or someone's trying to assemble land for a prison. I tried to start a rumor that they were going to move the Indianapolis Motor Speedway up to Lebanon. That one didn't stick around. People didn't believe that one. But we started hearing these rumors. And so March 1st is when I actually finally met with the governor and the secretary, and they kind of laid it all out and said what the vision is, and here's what the idea behind it was.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, sorry. Water is a contentious issue with this project. Plans call for more water to be brought into Boone County. Without a pipeline to bring in water, what does Lebanon's water supply look like? Is there a water supply issue currently?
So water has always been a challenge for Lebanon. Even my predecessor, this was an issue he was working on as well too. That's part of why, even going back to about more than 10 years ago, we started the Boone County Water Study. So essentially kind of evaluate what our options are. Just where Lebanon sits geographically speaking, we kind of sit between the White River and the Wabash River watershed, so water kind of runs away from us. So it certainly is a challenge here, and that's something that we've always been concerned about and focused on. How do we bring additional water resources to Lebanon? And so what's unique about LEAP is that based on the types of companies that they're looking at, these are high level of investments. Eli Lilly itself was $3.7 billion, which was the largest economic development project in the state of Indiana ever. And then, also we're pursuing the semiconductor facilities, which are, usually in the tens of billions of dollars. These have potential to generate a lot of revenue. And so the IDC essentially had the concept is how do we kind of essentially solve two problems with one solution, right? And so how do we use economic development to solve this water challenge? Because it's also not just Lebanon has a water problem. Certainly, we're probably the tip of the spear, and just based on geography, we face that more acutely. But Indianapolis, from a larger perspective, study done probably 10 years ago about as well too, or longer. Indianapolis will be out of water by 2050 for new development, right? Oh. So there is a looming water challenge for Indianapolis area as a whole, right? And so, Lebanon certainly is a bit of that, but there's a much larger problem that the state and IEDC is trying to solve using economic development. Because if we didn't have the economic development paying for the infrastructure, certainly that would mean that the ratepayers and people that pay their utility bills, they would have to burden that cost of finding additional water sourcing for the Indianapolis area, and that's not kind of what you want to see.
Yeah. Yes. The arguments against this project center around the possible taking of renewable resources like water, but we noticed in our research that the LEAP project also has plans for renewable resources. The website goes as far to say Boone County will be America's newest sustainable community. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, that's been a big part of the LEAP district, is they want to make it and set it up in a sustainable way. So certainly thinking about how do we properly manage stormwater, right? How are we being thoughtful and strategic about the energy usage and how that's used? Certainly the water is a challenging point there, right? But again, if it's part of this larger ecosystem of how do we recycle water and use those resources, that's certainly a forefront of a discussion. I would say though, there is kind of a misconception. Water at the end of the day is based on current state law. Water is a state resource, right? So water belongs to the property owner. And so I think, unfortunately, a lot of the opposition to the pipeline, LEAP, et cetera, it's kind of developed out of people thinking that the water belongs to certain counties or municipalities themselves, and it's not a state resource. And I think that's maybe some of where it's almost kind of morphed into a little bit of a not in my backyard type scenario, because, this is our water and we don't want to share. Unfortunately, I've heard, firsthand accounts of people asking, well, would this be a problem with a water pipeline, or whatever, would this be an issue bringing this water out if the LEAP district was in Tippecanoe County? And say, oh, well, no, of course not, right? So that it just kind of highlights it's really not necessarily about the water. I think there's some other factors at play here that cause some consternation there.
Okay. What level of communication do you have with the mayors of Lafayette and West Lafayette? Have your conversations been productive?
So I am very involved with the AIM group, right? And so, which is the Accelerated Indiana Municipalities, so kind of, and also the mayor's group as well. I would say I had a relationship with Mayor Dennis. I don't know Mayor Rosworski very well. A lot of those conversations, certainly have become, were kind of started by the IEDC. And so I think, we haven't had a lot of discussions with him personally, me one-on-one with him. I'm in the Indiana Conference of Mayors, so I would love to run him at a conference one of these days, but he doesn't attend those super often, so I don't necessarily see him there. But and I know that West Lafayette has a new mayor as well, and would love to sit down and chat with her as well to talk about these issues. But unfortunately, I think sometimes, again, we all at the end of the day are trying to do what's best for our communities. And, those are different populations. So, I mean, I certainly understand some of the comments that Mayor Rosworski has made in the past. Again, I don't know how open he'd be to my call, but I'd be happy to meet with him if he ever wanted to. But again, I don't know how, from his end, if he's willing to do that.
Okay, no problem. The development has been paused due to a study. What is your level of confidence that the project will resume? What do you think about the study that came at the request of Tippecanoe County officials?
I wouldn't necessarily agree with your framing that it's been paused. I think the development is still ongoing. I mean, I'm having meetings constantly with the IDC about new leads that are coming into the LEAP district. So certainly any further analysis from a water standpoint, that certainly is waiting on the water study being performed by the Indiana Finance Authority. But that study's ongoing, right? So as that study's moving forward, I wouldn't call that paused. Yeah. So, and I think that, again, that's kind of the misconception, is that, they think the state's going to come in and just move all this water. They have to prove that, one, the water's there, two, it won't harm people, and then also three, they need a user that even justifies it. And I think that's something that's a misunderstanding as well, that people think that the pipeline's just going to get built. Yeah. And that's certainly not the case, because you need the economic development from a large user, a large investment, to use the Innovation Development District legislation to capture that revenue to then justify the building of the pipeline, right? So you need the user to first say, hey, we want to be in LEAP, to then justify going into the pipeline. Oh. Excuse me.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Interesting question there.
The IEDC website for the project promotes the fact that Lebanon is only 30 miles from Purdue. How important is it to have Purdue's support for the project?
I think it's hugely important. I actually have had the chance to meet President Chang a couple times and speak about the project. He's very supportive of the LEAP district, from my understanding, and I know certainly we've been actually had a dinner together with some potential companies that were looking at the LEAP district. I know he's been doing a ton of work in the semiconductor space, and he's a huge advocate for what's developing as the hard tech corridor, right, from Lafayette area to Indianapolis, which Lebanon sits right in the middle of. And so certainly having Purdue involved is a key part of it. If you look at the Research Triangle area, that's kind of, there are several state universities down there, UNC, North Carolina State, that are very involved with that. And that's a big reason of why it's successful, and why, if you look at what the Research Triangle Park has done for North Carolina as a whole, having that participation and engagement from those universities has been critical for that. So when you look down the future, hard tech corridor, we've got Purdue on one end, and we've got Purdue, Indianapolis, right? IU Indianapolis on the other end, right? And with Bio Crossroads and Eli Lilly and Roche and all those types of companies that are in this area, right? And so certainly having Purdue involved is very, very important, because also, as you know, having talent is critical, and we want to keep all those Boilermakers are graduating with a degree up there, keep them here in Indiana, and that's part of the goal, right? This is all about providing opportunities for you guys going forward.
That's all the time we have today. Thank you to our guest, Mayor Gentry, for being with us today, and thank you for watching. See you next time on Watching Washington.